Let's get started. The special meeting of the Board of Education for January 13th, 2025 is called to order. The meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website and on Channel 28. And will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district website for replay times. Good evening and welcome. The purpose of tonight's special meeting is to interview and select a new board member to fill the vacancy in Zone 1 due to Director Scott's resignation effective today. I want to take a moment to thank Andrew Scott for his service on the board, and I know that he will always remain a strong supporter of Portland Public Schools. We do have one unexpected action item before we move on to the reason we are here today. Dr. Armstrong, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair Wong, members of the board. Good evening. Like many of you, we have been watching the horrific fires that have been ravaging the Los Angeles area and seeing the impact on that community. Los Angeles Unified School District has put out a call to request assistance with locating enough portable air purifier systems to help with the air quality in their schools at this time. So the resolution before you tonight is to donate surplus air purifiers to Los Angeles Unified School District as soon as possible.
Thank you, Superintendent. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 7044?
Second.
Resolution to donate air purifiers to Los Angeles Unified School District. We have Director Green motions and Director Holland seconds. Any board discussion?
Perhaps you can just say how many are going and what do we have in reserve? I'm supportive of but just want to make sure, since this was a big issue for the community about air filters.
Yeah, great question, Director Brim-Edwards. We have 2,600 approximately, and so we're looking at donating about 2,000. And all of our classrooms have air purifiers at the moment.
And they're paying for the transport there. So it's strictly a donation. Did we get them free of charge from OHA?
Yeah, great question. We did get them free of charge, and LA Unified will cover all shipping costs to receive the air purifiers.
And I understand we got those during COVID, right? So
Yes.
they're sort of extra.
Yes, so all of our classrooms are covered. We have about 2,600 in storage. We'll hold on to 600 and look to donate the rest.
Great.
I'm really glad we can do something concrete for that community that's devastated right now, so I'd be very supportive.
Yes, thank you for putting this forward. Anything to help. All right, any other further board discussion? Ms. Bradshaw, is there any public comment?
No.
All right, the board will now vote on Resolution 7044, resolution to donate air purifiers to the Los Angeles Unified School District. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Yes. All in favor, please indicate by saying no. All right, Resolution 7044 is approved by a vote of 6-0 with student representative's not here. Thank you. I didn't see you there. Sorry. Student Representative Consavi, can you please indicate your vote?
Yes.
Great. 6-0 with Student Representative Consavi unofficially voting yes. All right, now we will now move on to the interviews of our potential new board members. We're very fortunate, I think I speak for hopefully everyone here. We have 3 very strong candidates to fill Director Scott's old seat. These candidates will have applied to serve on the board through June 30th, at which time the winner of the May 2025 special election will serve the remaining 2 years of the term. The 3 candidates that we have to be considering tonight are Jackie Wers, Christy Splitt, and Jasmine Reese. And each candidate here is eligible for this position as they have resided more than a year within the boundaries of Zone 1. All 3 have submitted their application and answered several questions about their interest in being on the board and their commitment to education and equity, just to name a few. So before we begin, I know it's awesome to see people come in and be interested in going on the board. We have people, this is open to the public, of course, and I am going to ask, though, that during this interview process, so that the board can remain as unbiased as possible and also it is a job interview, so to kind of maintain professionalism, I am asking the audience to, if we can stay silent, no cheering, booing. When they're done and they're leaving, it'd be nice everyone, applause, because it takes a tremendous amount of courage to apply for a public position. And I think all three candidates, I can say confidently, have shown tremendous amount of courage to apply this position and be interviewed in a public format. So thank you very much for being interested in public schools. Yes. So one of the to decide the order, the names are put in a random name generator, and so the order we have today is we have Jackie Wars going first, Chrissy Split going second, and Jasmine Reese going third. The rules are for tonight, each candidate will be given the opportunity to give a 2-minute opening statement. Then each board member and student representative will ask a question of the candidate, who will have 2 minutes to answer. Ms. Bradshaw will have or Ms. Powell will have the light on over there to remind the candidates when their time is close. At the conclusion of the board asking question, each board member will be allowed to ask, are you listening? You listen? Yes. A follow-up question, which candidate will have 1 minute to answer. So you get one follow-up question. At the conclusion of the interviews, we will then each cast a voice vote at the dais. The candidate who has 4 votes will be our next board director for Zone 1. I will administer a ceremonial oath this evening, and there will be an official oath sworn in with a notary in the morning, at which time the candidate will become the official member. Before we get started, I want to remind, I already said that. All right, number 1, welcome. Thank you, Ms. Wurs, for being here tonight. Each of us will, just kind of quick reminder, each one of us will ask one question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. When you have 1 minute remaining, the yellow light on the timer will go on. And when your time is up, the red light will go on and the buzzer will sound. And we just respectfully ask that you wrap up your answer at that time. You're asked to prepare an opening statement. You have 2 minutes. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. My name is Jackie, and I am a biochemist by training, a nonprofit executive director by profession, and a lifelong believer in the transformative power of education. I like education so much that I graduated from the 23rd grade. After I completed my PhD, I ended up becoming a faculty member, academic administrator, and student affairs dean at Oregon Health and Science University. Subsequently, I transitioned to becoming a nonprofit leader, where my organization focused on K-12 STEM education, as well as community education for complex healthcare issues. I currently work as executive director of an organization promoting pathways to primary care excellence, specifically focusing on educational support in family medicine. Now, I stand here today, or sit, as it were, not because I have achieved success through academic achievement, but rather because I have struggled within the education system. But through those struggles, I have learned the power of support and resources. I've shared my story with countless other people, and hundreds of students had told me about their lived experiences when they have experienced racial discrimination, sexual harassment, insufficient accommodations for disabilities, or just pure lack of access to the resources they need to succeed in academia. I have dedicated my career to creating more equitable access, and I have done so through programs and even whole departments, but I want to do more. I can think of no greater act of service than to serve on the Portland Public School District Board of Directors. The ability of the board to shape policy, budgetary decisions, and to really craft a vision for 44,000 students in this district is one that's going to have immediate ramifications not only now, but decades in the future for the economic prosperity and a bright future for all Oregonians. I would love nothing more to contribute my very geeky talents to the board of directors. And if there's one thing I believe, it is that regardless of who you choose today, whether that's Christy, myself, or Jasmine, the collective talent, leadership, and vision in this room has the power and the transformative ability to take Dr. Kimberly Armstrong's vision into reality. Together, we rise. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Whew.
All right. I believe we. Yeah, I want to clap. I believe we go in the order of the questions on this list, correct? That's correct. All right. So it looks like I start. All right. The first question is, what is your understanding of the primary functions and responsibilities of a public school board?
A public school board is charged with a multitude of duties, but the number one of which is making sure that the goals of the district are going to be achieved. This is practiced through rigorous policy development and implementation, through support of the superintendent and assessment of the superintendent's performance, and also through fiscal oversight. Now, many people believe that budgeting is a bore, but I believe that how we use our money is a testament to what we put faith and believe in. So combined together, this means that we're using our fiscal acumen, our policy insights, and the trust the community has given to the board members to weave these together to create a sustainable and actionable vision for Portland Public School District.
All right. What do you see as the relationship between the board and the superintendent?
I believe that the board of directors is charged with appointing and overseeing the superintendent, and that this is a responsibility that really puts trust in the superintendent. I do not believe the board should be micromanaging in the oversight of the superintendent. This individual has been chosen and vetted for their absolute ability to accomplish the job not only well, but also with stirring vision. And I believe that the board is in service of the superintendent to make sure that that happens. Now, the board is the mechanism of accountability, and as such, will take the temperature of the community through listening sessions, through engagement directly with the community via email or other mechanisms of action. But that this collective data and information is used to create an assessment that is overall supportive of the superintendent and not necessarily micromanaging or punitive.
Thank you.
All right, all right. I'm next. I'm Gary Hollins. How you doing today?
I will be doing better in about 15 minutes.
I hear you. All right. My question is, how would you prioritize issues such as academic achievement, equity, student mental health, and teacher support? And can you give an example of a time when you took action or provided leadership to prioritize an issue of importance?
Now, unfortunately, we live in an era where there are multiple issues that are urgent and pressing on today's youth. These include mental health as well as safety and all of our curricular goals. In order to accommodate all of these, it's important that we not think in terms of prioritization, but we think in terms of systems thinking. Everything has an action and an equal and opposite reaction. So says physics. I'm a believer in physics, and what I believe is that when we're looking at making decisions, we need to look at how they resonate across an entire system. Now, the example I gave in my application was the confidential advocacy program. We had insufficient resources to provide sexual harassment and gender discrimination support through the legally protected class of a confidential advocate. Now, it would seem easy to say, like, let's just invest more in this particular space, but every dollar comes from somewhere else. So we needed to do an analysis of where the funding and the FTE would come from. We developed a coalition of support across all different populations at Oregon Health and Science University to identify where we could bring together the appropriate resources without hamstringing any current programs that also provide learner and employee support. We were ultimately able to scrape enough resources together to apply for a grant that subsequently funded the program, but we did so strategically, making sure that we were able to leverage all of the resources after that environmental scan and use them and deploy them in a way that was going to be sustainable through the granting process. So when it comes to prioritization, I believe that everything is connected. We need to look at how every decision will affect other categories. We don't need to necessarily think of it as winners and losers. We need to think about it as emphasizing growth in specific areas, and we're going to trade that off by making sure that we are thinking holistically of the impacts and are aware of them at all times.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you so much for being here, Herman Green. And my question is, can you provide an example of a time when you had to make a difficult decision in a group or collaborative environment?
A time that I had to make a difficult decision in a group or collaborative environment. I think that would have to be when I was working in organ, eye, and tissue donation. Now, this is an environment where every minute counts. When a donor becomes available, literally every minute is essential as we try to identify another available individual who is in need of a life-saving organ, eye, or tissue transplant. And a decision that I had to make that was very difficult regarded the database that we were using to match all of the appropriate entities. The database was insufficiently secure, and I felt that it was really important that we move forward with something that could be more flexible, sustainable, and meet the highest and most rigorous standards for accountability. In doing so, I had to invest dollars that were not necessarily set aside for this activity, as well as time and energy to make this switch. So the difficult decision was one that was, although altruistic in the long run, was one that in the short term created pain for different parties that were involved. However, by balancing out the long-term wins and also identifying short-term pain, but also short-term immediate steps that could be taken to alleviate that discomfort, we were able to create a sustainable solution and change databases.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for being here. My question is, how would you balance the needs of students, teachers, and the broader community when making decisions?
Hi, I didn't realize that you were talking at first, so hello, it's nice to virtually meet you. Okay, how would I balance the needs of all of those different populations in the PPS school board role? The answer is that we are here to serve the students. It is a school district. The student success is the #1 priority, and we serve in service to the student population. Now, to balance those needs, again, we need to go back to that systems approach and make sure that we are accounting for example, teacher exhaustion and overwhelm. We need to make sure that they're resourced enough to be able to provide top-of-the-line educational experiences. We need to provide sufficient resources and make sure that our staff are equipped to evolve with the changing needs of the student population. So everything serves in relationship to everything else in the student ecosystem, but the student priority is the #1 because we are in service of the students, and our goal is that you will do so fabulously that you will create a great retirement fund for me.
Good evening.
Hello.
Julia Rim Edwards, Zone 6. Thank you for being here. My question is, how do you plan to engage with students, parents, and community members to gather input and feedback?
I have a burgeoning Portland Public School District hoodie collection, and I plan on expanding that hoodie collection until I hit every single school in the district, and I will be ruthless in making sure that it has the cutest mascots on all of them. I believe that the way to engage the population is to go out and be in the population. I greatly look forward to school visits, to being able to attend PTA conferences, to be able to attend graduation and shake the hands of those students walking across that stage and welcoming kindergartners on the very first day to school. The only way that I can serve this community is by being in the community, and that is my plan.
Hi, Michelle DePass. I represent Zone 2. Nice to see you. How would you work to address disparities in educational opportunities and outcomes for marginalized groups, including students of color, LGBTQ+ students, and students with disabilities?
That is a fabulous question. I believe that the phrase goes that diversity is a fact, equity is an action, and inclusion is a feeling. I actually disagree with that phrase because each one of those becomes discrete binned items in isolation from each other. I think that in order to address diversity, equity, and inclusion, we need to address all three of them at the same time. They are integrated. You will never have a sense of inclusion until we're actually able to understand all of the data about the history and the current status of what our students are going through. We're never going to be able to make equitable decisions until we're able to make and feel an impact that the students are going to resonate with. So when it comes to how I'm going to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that students from marginalized and underserved populations are going to be served, is to always, always prioritize marginalized and underserved students. All boats rise when we do this important and essential action. And the way that we're going to do this is just by asking every single day, is this in service to our Black community? Is this in service to our trans community? Is this in service to our Hispanic community or our Asian American community or our Native American community? These are simple questions that can be predicated before every action, and this simple action can resonate across all levels of the DEI spectrum. There's a lot of silence after I finish. I'm like,
Nice. Yeah.
Well, we're instructed we can't cheer and all that stuff, so.
Thank you, Ms. Wers. Board members, this is the time to ask follow-up questions for Jackie Wers if you want. And you will have 1 minute to answer the follow-up questions.
concise, check.
I think the board may need a couple minutes to think, so.
There were a couple of things you said that I just want you to expand on, how it would work in the district. You said you don't think of winners and losers, short-term pain for long-term health. And how do you see those two things working to support the school district?
I think a lot of it has to do with transparency. Noreen Smokey Smith was actually sitting in this chair just last week, and she talked about the 7-generation thinking. And 7-generation thinking is that super long-term view about how our actions today are going to impact 7 generations down the road. Now, that's something that we need to teach people about. We people feel everything right now immediately because it's on our phones and we have to react, and there's that dopamine hit. And so I think there's a lot of education about how we can develop the discipline to be 7-generation thinkers. So I think we need to be transparent about when we're making a decision about the long-term wins and not just say, oh, 7 years down the road, this is going to be helpful, but to say, as this program continues to develop, here's what we can expect to see in Q1, in year 3, et cetera, creating clear, visionable roadmaps for how the long-term success can be gained, while at the same time acknowledging the short-term deficits. And again, this takes a little bit of training in how we're going to be thinking and approaching problems, but it is very doable and something that is an exercise in communication that I look forward to.
Thank you.
Do you want us to go in order, or can we just jump in?
Go.
Okay, I'll jump in. Can you share what experience you have advocating for a cause, issue, campaign, legislation, or some sort of policy change?
Yeah. I was the co-chair of the 2016 March for Science. This was after the election, and it was a shocking result for some people. And we were really feeling that there was a concern about the intellectual rigor of science and how it was going to be supported legislatively. As part of the March for Science movement, I decided that I wanted to make a stand and do something here in Portland. I wanted to make it a family-friendly event, something that was inclusive, that was going to be enjoyable, and that was going to raise interest in science. We were able to do this by working closely with a variety of populations to ensure a safe march at a time when marches weren't always safe. We did this through extensive outreach, coordinating with multiple groups with different political backgrounds and approaches, and a clear vision for what the march was going to be. And I'm really excited to say that we had 15,000 people there in downtown Portland, and we marched, we sang, we did science experiments. It was lovely. But there's still more work to do. That's one reason why I'm here today.
Thank you. You mentioned in one of your or several of your responses about systems thinking, and I'm curious if you can expand on what the system of student mental health and teacher support, how does that look like within a system?
Well, there are multiple ramifications for any single decision-making process. One thing I was involved with was the iPad initiative at OHSU for students with disability. It was largely believed that iPads had built-in accessible features, and so we wanted to incorporate that. By introducing the iPads, we discovered that the technology infrastructure didn't exist to support 5 wireless devices per student in the learning halls, so we had to upgrade that. But then we discovered that the faculty didn't have the faculty training to make sure that the curricula was going to be accessible on the iPad, so we had to fix that. And then we had to worry about the information and data security for this many devices on the network, so we had to fix that. So as the process goes for helping one student with their disability accommodations, there was a multitude of systems that ended up being integrated into the overall solution. Now, some could say that this was spiraling out of control, but in my opinion, this shone an invaluable light on the complexities of every decision that we make, and it afforded us the opportunity to improve multiple systems with that one act.
I was actually going to ask the same question. As
Ditto.
Dr. Pass.
We're starting to think alike.
No.
Does Dr. Armstrong get a question?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I think it kind of has to remain
Okay.
within the board. But I believe that Student Director Consavi has the opportunity to ask a follow-up question. I just want to check in to make sure, to see if you have a question or not.
Yeah, Chair Wong, I just have a quick question. Does it have to be a question that was like specifically listed, or can it just be like any follow-up question?
Yeah, it's an open question time. They have
All
1
right.
minute to answer.
Then my question is, how do you plan on centering student voice and collaborating with students during decisions?
I'm going to sit at your feet and listen. There is the Student Council that exists for a very important reason, and that is to gather information and make sure that it is being voiced and represented at meetings like this. So I believe that centering student voice happens by listening to the students. Additionally, being in the community is being in the community with students. There's going to be a lot of parents too, but the students are the people that are receiving the services that are the central point, the focal point of this entire system. So being in community with the students directly, but then also using the built-in mechanism that currently exists to allow your voice to be brought to this table is one that I will deeply respect and engage with.
Thank you. I did have one question.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit expanding on Director DePass's question. So, I think looking at your background is very impressive. You have a background in both working as a director of nonprofit and OHSU. Well, I guess I'll shut up now. Yeah. And also been on boards of a few organizations. So, one of the things about a strong board is when we have a diversity of experiences and backgrounds. And I think that is I guess my question is there any insight you can share from having seen kind of management and governance from both sides?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I am very sensitive to is being able to find the right level of scope for the problem at hand. Now, as a director, we will at times have to have that 10,000-foot view, making sure that the bigger picture is always being captured. But at the same time, when appropriate, dive into the details, for example, during the budget preparation period and during the audit. So I feel that having served on both the operational side of an educational enterprise as well as on the board side of an enterprise, that the ability to identify when I'm going to be using which of those skill sets is one that I could bring to bear at the school board.
Awesome, thank you. Last call. Thank you, Jackie Wars. This concludes your interview, and Ms. Powell will walk
Thank you so
back
much.
to the waiting area. Thank you so much for being here and
Have a great evening.
taking the step. Thank you. Does everyone need like a 2-minute stretch break? All right, let's give everyone a 2-minute stretch break. Do whatever you need, water, pee. Next up, we have Christy Split. Thank you so much for being here today. Each of us, just a reminder of the rules, each of us will ask you one question, and you will have 2 minutes to answer. When you have 1 minute remaining, the yellow light on the timer will go on, and then when its time is up, the red light will go on and a buzzer will sound, so just respectfully finish up your answer then.
There's no hook. Maybe we'll
Maybe
find out.
later. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for coming, and big thank you for applying to this spot. So let's get started. So you were asked to prepare an opening statement. You have 2 minutes to share your remarks, and go ahead whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you so much. I just wanted to say, first of all, I think we all know that recruitment for a school board is really challenging, right? And I just want to say that I'm really grateful that we had 2 other people step up. When I first put my name into the universe for this position way back in November and sent you all emails and whatnot, I was a little worried it might just be me. And I guess there's some comfort when it's just you, sure. I'm not going to lie. But I also think that it's not what's best for our school district. And I really hope there's always competitive races. So I'm really, really glad we had 3 just super high quality candidates apply. So I want to thank them, even though they're not here to hear it. I need really all to each of you too for stepping up for the role. For the rest of my 2 minutes, I want to focus on something that underpins the answers to each of the interview questions or the application questions. I hear we have a little bit of different questions, which I'm excited about. To me, the thing that I wanted to share is really sort of my vision for public schools. To me, public schools are the foundation of our communities, the foundation of our democracy. And it's not where you just learn math or you learn science, but you learn critical thinking, you learn how to make friends, you learn about how caring adults can be there for you. And so to me, anytime we are falling short because of a lack of resources or a lack of effective policy or implementation, it's not just our kids we're letting down, it's really our entire community and really the future of our communities. And I just also want to flag that I've said in my application, and I say it all the time, I feel like bringing fully funded schools back to Oregon is my life's work. And it's something that I think isn't just about kids. My kids are here. I'm really excited. They're awesome. Look at that big smile. She's ready to be a politician herself. And they're awesome, and they deserve the absolute best. But to me, it's not about my kids. It's about all kids. But it's not just about kids, right? Like, we want to have adults that had a good education. We want adults who get to work with people who had a solid education. And so I wanted to make sure you all knew that. And with that, I'm excited to take your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll go first, just like
Great.
before. First question is, what is your understanding of the primary functions and responsibilities of a public school board?
Yeah. So simply put, oh, by the way, it's really handy that you have it on your website, what a school board does, but so I may have cheated. But the school board evaluates and approves the budget, evaluates and passes new or updated district policies, hires and evaluates the superintendent. Nice work last year, by the way. Approves contracts, including those with our union workers, and they serve as ambassadors between the district and the people that they represent. I want to add that I think that ambassador role is a place that I would really want to sink my teeth into. I consider it a board member's responsibility to reach out to school and other communities in support of, say, a bond that might be on a ballot here soon. I'd expect to hear from and respond to residents in my district about their concerns and hopes for our schools. And I'd also consider it a board member's responsibility to engage in the legislature, or with the legislature, and not just with legislators, but think about that nice, big, excited city council. And shouldn't they also be advocating for an excellent public school system here in the city of Portland? I think so. I also want to share a bit about what I think it takes to become a school board member. With May so soon, when I first heard of this opportunity in November, I got right to work. Within 24 hours, I was talking to my family, I was talking to my employer, getting the green light so I could email all of you and ask what you thought about running for school board. And then I also immediately hired a treasurer, opened a PAC. I built a website, mostly by myself. It shows, but I think it's okay. And I secured endorsements from elected officials and from just people in my community that I admired. And I've gathered donations from 108 people and counting. So my next step will be knocking doors. I promise that every door I go to, I will have information on the bond with me. And I have a goal of visiting neighbors in every middle school catchment area. I only wish I could do every elementary catchment area, but I have a full-time job, and I don't think I can do it by May. I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next is from me.
Thank you.
What do you see as the relationship between the board and the superintendent?
Yeah, so this is a new question, and I'm excited we have some new questions, but I just, I won't be as prepared. But I think it's really exciting that we have a new superintendent, and I guess my time is up.
That was very quick.
I really think, I'm sure I'll talk about it at some point, but, I've worked in politics for most of my career. And I think that balance between an elected official and staff is something I know really well. I currently work in the executive branch where I'm, in a way, staff. And so I kind of get to see that interaction between elected officials and executive branch staff, per se, pretty frequently. And I think you have the role as sort of the hiring and evaluation, but also to be a sounding board, I think is really important, to provide excellent advice, and that's a two-way street. Like, I would expect to get excellent advice from the superintendent, And I would expect to be asked for advice and to give that advice and have it be a two-way street. I'm a little nervous about time, but I think that bottom line is that while there's that evaluation role, I think the partnership role is really critical. And I feel like when those partnership feelings or vibes get frayed, that can be really problematic. So I'd want to help be glue to really make sure that the board is working closely with the superintendent and also really value the staff that you hire or retain, and make sure that they feel respected and heard by the school board as well.
All right. It's my turn next. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous.
All right. Just a little bit. It's okay. My question is, how would you prioritize issues such as academic achievement, equity, student mental health, and teacher support? And can you give an example of a time you took action or provided leadership to prioritize an issue of importance?
Thank you. So really, all of those issues matter deeply, and I'm directly quoting from my application because I think this is right on. We should not have to choose, right? We are in the position of having to choose because we don't have adequate resources. So I just want to make sure that we start there. Then I want to say anyone who has spent time in a school knows you cannot expect a kid who has unmet needs to excel academically. Equity cannot be achieved without providing support to kids who need support to be ready to learn. So for me, equity comes first on this list. It comes first on any list. If we have kids at school who are not ready to learn, we cannot expect them to be ready to learn, right? We have to get that right first and foremost. From there, I think student mental health and teacher support come next. Kids need to feel safe, again, so that they can be ready to learn. They have to feel a sense of belonging at school. And it's really hard to foster a school environment in which kids' foundational needs are met without reasonable workloads and time to learn and prepare for our educators, and really for our support staff too. I believe that as equity and mental health and teacher support are addressed, academic achievement improves. Research shows that that's the case. For the last 3 years, I have driven advocacy for essential positions at our school that actually directly relate to these 4 topics. Those positions are our assistant principal and our art teacher, and as we're one of those schools that's been cut every year for the last 4 years. So we've had to fight for these positions every time. I've done things like contacting district staff, creating tools to help other people in our community take easy action to support these positions. I've testified to the school board. You all really love to snap when I testify, so that always feels pretty good. And while last year, for the first time, our school relied on foundation funding for staff, we got 1 year, we managed to save our art teacher. I'm also pretty proud that the assistant principal position has been funded by the district every year, even though we've had to fight for it every time. Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Herman Green. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Can you provide an example of a time when you had to make a difficult decision in a group or collaborative environment?
Yeah, this is a new question too, and I actually think the thing that sprung to mind is actually something that didn't come up in my application. I spent a couple of years on the board for Food Front. Are any of you familiar with Food Front? Okay. So it's a cooperative grocery store. We had a store in Hillsdale, which is my neighborhood. And that store was like the heart of my life when I had little kids. Delaney, my older daughter, she used to play while I would shop, and I could holler over the wall to her while I was shopping to see if she was okay. And the cashiers knew her and would keep an eye on her. I mean, that was the type of environment we had. And I remember thinking, like, this grocery store is like magical to me. And I knew that it was in trouble. And so I joined the board. And as soon as I got on the board, it was like, we were in all sorts of trouble. And I didn't know before I got on the board. We actually had to make a decision to let the general manager go. And that was really, really hard. So it was like walking into a situation where I was like, I want to help save the store, and realizing, like, what is happening? And I actually hung in there for 2 years on that board. During that time, we found out that we were months late on paying our lease, and our landlord was going to go ahead and start looking for another tenant. We had to make a lot of really hard decisions regarding staff and layoffs, and we had a churn of general managers because we had let go our general manager and couldn't get one to stick, because once you'd get somebody in, they'd be like, what is this, you know? So I feel like I really had an experience that put me through a lot of tough times. The one thing is, the store is closed now. We had to close the one store, and then I was on the board, and we had the other store. And when I left, though, we had a great general manager, and things were going really well. And I just remember that sense of accomplishment I felt of making it through that experience of, I mean, it was really hard. But we made it through that experience, and in the end, we had like a going concern. We were making money. It was going really well, and that changed over time after. But it was still a like impactful experience for me, where a lot of tough decisions were made in a leadership position.
All right, thank you so much for being here. My question is, how would you balance the needs of students, teachers, and the broader community when making decisions?
Thanks. Hi. I was a little bit taken surprised, JJ. I didn't know that you were remote. I was like, what's happening? But I'm really glad to hear you here tonight. So the needs, this is an interesting question to me. I want to start with something that when I reviewed my application, I wish I had started with. I don't think you can balance those needs without listening first. And we need to figure out what our students, teachers, and broader community want to see before we make decisions. I actually didn't get to all of my opening statement, and I actually talked a little bit about engagement. It's actually sort of my passion. I was a civics teacher. I don't know if we'll still get to the question where I was going to talk about the fact that I was a high school civics teacher to start my career. And I joke that I'm a civics teacher every day, even though I haven't been a paid civics teacher in 20 years probably at this point. And so to me, I think that engagement comes kind of naturally to me because I want to like teach people and connect with people about government and want them to be part of our world here, because my day job is already in that world. So beyond that, though, I just want to say that for me, students will always come first. But I also think that what's best for teachers and support staff, who don't really appear in this question, but I think are critically important to our work, I think what's best for the staff is good for the kids. For the most part. I just don't necessarily see that tension because I think when you treat professionals well, they tend to excel at their work more often, and we want to see our teachers and staff excelling because then they will connect with kids better, and connecting with kids better will help them to teach better. And so I also just want to flag that I know that with the bond looming, you've all been thinking a lot about that community as a whole, not just about the people that we interact with in our schools every day. And I've been thinking, too, a lot about the bond, having tracked the school board, especially over the past couple of months. And, I think that Portland really does value our public school system. We have a track record of voting to, pay a little more in taxes, sometimes a lot more in taxes. So I think that'll be a really important audience for the next several months.
Hi, Christy.
Hey, good to see you.
Julia from Edwards, Zone 6. Good to have you here tonight and your family.
Thanks.
Civics lesson. My question, how do you plan to engage with students, parents, and community members to gather input and feedback?
Ooh, I didn't even know this question was coming. I love it. Well, now I can talk a little bit about Constitution Team for a second. So I coached Constitution Team. I won't say which school because I don't want anyone to get mad at me, but in Portland Public Schools, and I did that for 12 years. It was a really big deal for me, and this is something I did from when I was like 25 until I found myself in DC with a 4-month-old baby, Sylvan, my younger child, and realized, okay, this is probably gone too far. But I just loved working with young people that much. I'd been a high school teacher, and then I was still getting to have that experience of interacting with high school kids. And I just want to say last week you all were talking about the possibility of 16 and 17-year-olds voting in school board elections. I'm all for it. Like, I think the youth that I have worked with, whether they're kids on Constitution Team that are academically excelling, or the kids that I worked with doing credit makeup when I was a teacher in a different school district, those kids have great ideas. They have their finger on the pulse. And so I think that really getting a chance to talk to students, I know you all have a student council sort of organization that provides you advice, will be a real kind of strong suit for me, and it will really be something I'll love to do. I also already work closely with parents all over the district on school funding. I have found ways to connect with those families to hear about their needs and really bring them to the table to talk to legislators and others. So I think that the ways that you can connect, are varied, and it has been somewhat harder to connect post-pandemic. But I think just kind of meeting people where they are, showing up at pickup or drop off at a school, for example, and introducing yourself. I also think we need to remember that we have families and kids that don't connect with their schools, don't feel safe talking to a school board member. So I think also working with the staff at the district to help get their ideas for how we can better connect with those families that are more disconnected will be on my agenda as well.
Great, thank you for being here, Michelle DePass. How would you work to address disparities in educational opportunities and outcomes for marginalized groups, including students of color, LGBTQ+ students, and students with disabilities?
Thank you. This is the last question on the application, and I thought it was such a good one. I want to thank you for that. It also gets to one of the reasons I actually want to be on this school board. I feel like this district is deeply committed to addressing disparities, and I really admire and respect that. There's near constant acknowledgement of historic and current racism here at the school board whenever you listen in. I was hearing you all talk last week, and it's clear that everyone was on the same page, even if there was disagreement about maybe approach or timing or process. How lucky are we? I mean, you go to a school district 40 miles away, it's a different universe. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that. I appreciate that we have diverse people in leadership positions, including my own principal at my school. And I appreciate that there's goals in place to improve outcomes and opportunities for all. I also think that we're all seeing that these values are here and these policies and plans are here, but the needle is not moving enough, right? So I'd really want to know, I see the news coverage, which focuses on test scores, and we know that's only so much of a barometer for how things are going. So I'd really want to work with the other board members, staff, get into the field, and figure out where does it feel like it's working, even if the needle's not quite moving, and how can we try to see if we can make little tweaks to where things feel good and see if we can start to move that needle in some classrooms and then start to translate those lessons to other places. I've also reviewed, and I'd gladly adopt the district's equity framework for my own decision making. I think that's a really good document. I was pretty impressed. I also want to say, getting results takes time, requires investment. If you haven't heard, I think we need more school funding in our state and in our district. And then I also just want to point out that I think, again, to that being so grateful to be here, when the federal government does things like say we're going to withhold money unless you have a policy that discriminates against LGBTQ+ students, I feel like we will be all in support of saying heck no. And we will protect our kids, be a safe place for all kids standing against bullying and discrimination, regardless of what the federal government wants us to do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, now it's time to, excuse me, ask follow-up questions for Ms. Split, if you would like, and then you will have 1 minute to answer the follow-up question.
Okay.
All right, my question is, how do you plan on advancing literacy within the district?
Ooh, would you mind, I didn't quite catch that. Would you mind repeating it?
Yeah. How do you plan on advancing literacy within the district?
That's a really good question. It's funny because the first thing I want to do is turn around and talk to my kids. So I have a daughter who's back here who learned to read in kindergarten, Sylvan, and I know what worked in her classroom and what worked for her. I think we in the district have done a good job of recently adopting a new curriculum within the past few years. And I think sort of leaning in on what we've already invested in and seeing how things play out over time as teachers become more adept at using those materials is probably where I would start. I hate to say patience, but I know we just went to a new system and a new way of teaching reading, and so that might just take some time to catch on. So I just really want to pay attention to test scores, sure, but also hearing from the field, from the teachers in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, to hear about what's working with that new curriculum before we try to reverse course or do anything dramatic. Thanks for the question.
In your written materials,
Yeah.
you said, I know I'd continue to focus on positions at schools as the first priority, until kids' basic needs are met and they feel safe and welcome at school, which I think is in jeopardy with further cuts in schools. Nice to haves have to wait. I was thinking, what do you see as the nice to haves?
I think that's a really interesting question. And when I wrote it, I actually wrote more and then had to cut. You could imagine with the word count. That was a little tricky. I think that for me, I would really want to have more conversations. Well, I think I answered on another question that I feel like I really need to get into the weeds on the budget more than I have. I've gotten into the weeds on the budget for our own school, but not as much for other schools and other programs. I just can't even understand where you would find anything to cut at our school at this point. I just can't even begin to imagine. We just close the library completely? None of us want that, of course, but if we don't have more resources, we know those are the choices we're going to have. So I think I'd really feel like a more educated answer would need to come from me after I've taken a closer look at the budget. The things at a high level that come to mind are programs that aren't obviously benefiting all kids in a school, like anything that's serving a special interest of some sort. But I feel like I'd really have to see it to be able to name it. And I know that's not the best answer I could give, but it's my honest answer.
That's the problem with budgets.
Yeah, it's hard.
Very hard.
Yeah. Are the nice to haves already gone, everyone?
A follow-up question. What experience do you have? You've alluded to this already a little bit. But what experiences do you have advocating for a cause, issue, campaign, legislation, or policy?
Yeah, I'm glad to see that question come back because I didn't even really talk about my day job, and I actually think it's one of my biggest assets that I have in this conversation. So I mentioned I was a teacher. In 2004, I took a summer internship in Oregon politics, and I never went back. That's been my career ever since. And so I have experience as a legislative staffer. I actually worked for 2 teachers, which I think is pretty cool. I'm a grassroots advocate who relished bringing people to Oregon's Capitol for the first time. I've been a coordinator for the state's largest environmental coalition for 4 years. I've been a nonprofit fundraiser. I've been a state agency government relations coordinator. So my experience in passing legislation is, I could write many long lists of the bills that I've worked on over time. I focused on climate policy because that's been something that I've really worked on so consistently for really my entire career. And so in that example, that's much like school funding or schools in general, that's one of those issues that's just constant. And so I'd give that as an example. You just have to keep going. Yep.
So this question is kind of an extension of that, and maybe it's just giving you an extra minute to talk about it. You have a very impressive background.
Thank you.
And a strong board. Prides itself on having people with different backgrounds and different point of view, and with your strong background. So maybe my ask is if you could expand a little bit more of how you see how your background translates to how it helps the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think to me, one of the biggest issues we have as a school board, in addition to, I know a focus you have about engaging with our community, to me is engaging with our elected officials. They were pretty fired up about a year ago. And I know that those are relationships you've all been working on since then. And so and I'm sure doing a wonderful job of that. But I think having somebody on the board with that experience is really important. And I know you're probably like, well, we have Director Brim Edwards, but we all know that unfortunately she's only going to be here for a few more months. So I think having someone else who's also spent their career in that space, because that space is so critically important when it comes to school funding, and I think we can all agree that that is a huge issue facing our school district. So to me, when I decided to run it, it's not because I want to be here, it's because I want to serve. I think I can do good things for the school board and for this district with my experience as a school board member.
I have a question. I appreciate all your response. I'm trying to take notes as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
I'm curious how your lived experience would inform your policy development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. This was another thing that I didn't really talk about in my application because I didn't really know where to put it, but I think that one of the things that didn't come up is that I moved a ton as a kid. My mom doesn't like it when I talk about it. Sorry, Mom. I love you. But I went to 9 schools between kindergarten and graduating high school. And I feel like that really framed my experience and maybe why education became like a safe place for me, because like academics was a place that was safe for me at school. Being a new kid, the social stuff's really hard. And so I think all the time about how that's why I went into teaching. And even now, like my kids know it, there's a new kid in the class. I'm like, have you met the new kid? Are they doing okay? Can you introduce them to people that you think will be a good social fit? It's always on my mind. And so I think that experience is something that we know we have kids that share, that have that kind of instability or move around a lot. And so that's one area that I think I'd really focus on. I know with lived experience too, it's usually a question, about race.
In my case, I just want to clarify,
Oh,
it was
good.
about your lived experience in
Perfect.
general, and you gave
Oh,
a
good,
great
good,
example.
good. I just also wanted to say that I'll just leave it at that, if that's what you were aiming for. Thank you. That 1 minute is really tricky, friends. I was going to try to answer the question from the the application too.
Great. Any other questions? Last call.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Chrissy
you so
Split.
much.
This concludes the interview. Ms. Powell will walk you back. And again, I just want to also personally thank you for taking the bold step in being here and applying for this job.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, let's do another 2-minute break, and then next up we'll have Ms. Jasmine Reese, who will be joining us in a moment. we're just waiting for Ms. Reese to get a copy of the questions. All right, so when Roseanne shows up, we can start. Thank you for being here today. Excited. So to make sure it's all fair for everyone, we're just going to wait for the copy to show up. All right, are you ready? All right, let's get started. I just kind of want to review. Thank you, Jasmine Reese, for being here today. Again, this is we're really happy that you're applying to this position. Each of us will just kind of go over the rules really quick. Each of us will ask you one question, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer. When you have 1 minute remaining, the yellow light will go on in front of you, and then when the time's up, the red light will go on, and at that point, just kind of wrap up. Respectfully ask you to wrap up your answer. You were asked to prepare an opening statement, and you have up to 2 minutes to share those statements. So whenever you're ready, you may begin. Thank you.
All right. So can you hear me? Okay. The 3 most important things that I want you to take away are the following, and this is through the lens of my alma mater of Willamette University. Not until ourselves alone are we born. First, I am an urban leaguer, and I am empowered by the oldest, most historic civil rights organization to stand forward for equity and racial justice and equality under the law. And then second, I am, sorry, I prepared my statement. I tried to memorize it, and that's not good. Second, I'm an entrepreneur and small business owner, and I'm well-versed in business operations, in making connections, in building relationships, and delivering services that achieve the goals of my clients and my community. Third, I am her. What does that mean? I am an NC2A academic, All-American collegiate athlete and a coach, and I know well the female experience and adversity of Title IX. And the character and grit that's built within that paradigm, and that's what fuels me to set, achieve, and exceed my goals for myself, my family, my clients, and my community. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, great, thank you. Yes, we have a set list of questions that we ask all the candidates, so we'll just kind of go in the same order. All right, so the first question is, what is your understanding of the primary functions and responsibilities of a public school board?
From a high level, I understand that the school board is responsible for recruiting, retaining, and working in partnership with the superintendent in updating the policies that govern the school board, whether that be from budgeting or curriculum.
Thank you.
What do you see as the relationship between the board and the superintendent?
So I see it as it could be a push-pull, but oftentimes I think it would work best in an ecosystem of a partnership, and that the school board employs the superintendent here at Portland Public Schools, and the superintendent can seek school board members to help them roll out their strategic plan and what they want to achieve in their vision for the district.
Thank you.
Good evening. How you doing today?
Good.
All right. My question is, how would you prioritize issues such as academic achievement, equity, student mental health, and teacher support? And can you give an example of a time you took action or provided leadership to prioritize an issue of importance?
Yes. So I think first and foremost, equity is important. And second, I would say academic achievement after equity, after you're making sure you're reaching out to all of the voices of the community and the most disadvantaged ones. And then student mental health, because if you don't have mental health, you don't have academic achievement. And then teacher supports. I think all of those things will help lead to supporting a teacher. If the whole child is supported mentally and physically, and if everything is looked at through a lens of equity. And one example of that, which is really important for our district this year right now, is my work on the CPC for the Wells Bond. As a participant of the CPC, the Comprehensive Planning Committee for Ida B. Wells, we really felt that the design plan took issue or worked against the issue with the pool. And so we went amongst ourselves and did a public records request to find out, how do we research this question of the pool to best utilize the taxpayers' dollars for this bond project. And our findings, we conducted a survey of the community, and I presented those survey results during the Facilities and Bond special board, or the board committee meeting. Do you have any questions about that?
No. Thank you. Next question.
Yes, thank you so much again. Herman Green, my question for you this evening is, can you provide an example of a time when you had to make a difficult decision in a group or collaborative environment?
As the treasurer of the Bridal Mile PTA, we set our budget and we set our work plan in the spring. And we do that with or without knowing who our executive board is going to be. And then we approve a pending draft budget for the summer so we can keep the lights on, KLO, pay contractors, etc. When the fall comes, we are tasked with re-evaluating the budget based on the work plan and based on the forecasting of the revenue. This fall, we had to make a hard decision with our budget as we were spending down our deficits and cut the items from our budget that did not have active work plans. It was a hard conversation because we were really trying to bring back after-school programming to Bridal Mile. Our school is one of the largest K-5 schools in Southwest Portland. We have a special education community. We have a Black excellence community. We have Spanish speakers, and we thought it would embolden our community and bring more people together if we brought after-school programming back. So we set aside money to stipend our teachers to have Lego robotics and to bring in another program. Unfortunately, we didn't have a work plan to stand up those numbers, and our revenue for fundraising is down. So we had to make the hard decision to cut specific items out of our budget in the fall. And that was a difficult decision. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you so much for being here. My question is, how would you balance the needs of students, teachers, and the broader community when making decisions?
Thank you for your question, JJ. I think decision-making as a board, it obviously takes consensus. And my experience in staffing the mayor for the city of Portland, there's a lot of work that is undertaken behind the scenes between staff, constituents, and experts, right? And so I think that taking the position of not being the smartest person in the room and making sure you're consulting with your experts on the subject matter, making sure you're consulting with your constituents, and really understanding the delta and the gaps to know and have an assumption about how your decision-making is going to impact the target audience, right, or the consumer, or how those services will be rolled out. And then also having humility to be able to pivot and to say, looks like we got that wrong, right? JJ, do you have any questions? Oh, he's on mute.
Yeah, just quick reminder, I think at the end of these questions, we'll have
Follow-up? Okay.
follow-up questions, yeah, where we
Okay.
can ask more openly.
So it's my turn. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi.
Welcome this evening. Julia Brim-Edwards, Zone 6. How do you, my question is, how do you plan to engage with students, parents, and community members to gather input and feedback?
So currently, right now, being on the board of my PTA, we host a lot of events. There's a lot of text messaging, a lot of emails. I'm a room parent. I'm making phone calls to people, making sure that everyone's reading the Principal's Friday flyer. Do you know about the event that's happening this week? Did you RSVP? It's a lot of touch points. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of sneaker net as well. And like, let's stop by this person's house while we're out on a walk. It's boots on the ground, direct engagement, because in our community, people are inundated with email, and so that's not a very effective way to get the word out. You need to have a face-to-face conversation or be belly-to-belly at the business table. So I like direct engagement, but I know that that may not be accessible for all, and so I'm open to all forms of communication, whether it's translated or in person, so.
Hi, Jasmine, and welcome.
Hi, Michelle.
I have a question. So how would you work to address disparities in educational opportunities and outcomes for marginalized groups, including students of color, LGBTQ plus students, and then students with disabilities?
I think that's a great question, thank you. I think first, we have to know where the baseline is. We have to seek to understand before we're understood. I learned that in the Urban League when I was going through the leadership program, because coming out of college, you know, you're in your little bubble, you're around people who are doing the same things as you, you're in this world of like excellence or sheltered excellence of what you think. But to really be able to help someone, you need to understand first how they want to be helped, and then consult with other people around and how to best get it done, right? Because we don't really know what we don't know. And so being humbled and asking the questions and really trying to have that empathy to get someone to open up, to explain, because the data will show one thing, but there's always another story that is outside of the data.
Great. Thank you so much for your, and answering these questions. It is now time for the board members to ask follow-up questions, and just kind of a quick reminder, when the board asks follow-up questions, you have 1 minute to answer. Thank you. It usually takes a couple of minutes for the board members to kind of think of their question.
So this is a follow-up, and it kind of relates to the question I asked before about engaging with students and parents. This is engaging with different types of people. What experience do you have advocating for a cause, issue, campaign, legislation, policy, anything in that sort of sphere?
So 2 years ago, I got my kids suited and booted, and we drove down to Salem to testify at the legislature to the Joint Ways and Means Committee on Education. And I know the party line ticket was to just ask for the negotiated amount. However, I took the time to download and read through all of the reports from ODE and all of the departments that rolled up to ODE. I spent hours, and I didn't get any sleep. But what I understood from reading those reports from those staff members and reading between the lines is that we needed to fund the QEM. And so when I testified, I opposed the budget that was drafted, and I opposed on the reason that the QEM needed to be funded, because we had this, in real estate, when we tour a house with our clients, that's a question mark and that's a dollar sign. There's an unknown, and we don't really know the real cost of that. And I think the canary in the coal mine was the strikes that took place.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What was that last sentence?
the strikes. There just wasn't enough money to be able to fund COLAs, so.
Thank you. I'll go next. You know, I'm a true believer that the diversity of the board strengthens the board with unique backgrounds and stuff to kind of approach problem solving in different ways. You also have a very impressive background and have done so much great stuff. So I was wondering if you could speak, I guess for a minute, really quick, of how you envision your background and your knowledge and how that helps the board.
So I think my background, my strength as a small business owner is that water moves in the path of least resistance, and you have to be able to connect to people to get a job done and to fill a need. And everyone on the board brings great experience to the table, right? Working in governance, working for corporate America, working, you know, in the community of faith. But I think for me, like being a college athlete, being an academic All-American, and having that grit and that tenacity of like being able to set a goal and get her done, and then also not being afraid to call down and cold call people to bridge gaps and to bring people to the table to shake the tree and get the resources we need.
We're still writing and flipping through pages, so I think they're still working on the question. Check in with Student Representative Consavi.
Yeah, my question is, how do you plan on building trust and relationships with our community, especially our students and teachers?
I think what I understand in hearing what has been, or reading and listening to people's voices is being known and being front and center and really taking the opportunity to meet with people and be present and to hear their voice, and seeking to understand first instead of being understood. And I've been in my little bubble in Southwest Portland, doing my thing, raising my family, and so as a board member, I think it's really important to make sure you're touching all the points of the district and getting to know the communities in the district.
I noticed something in your written statement. We're talking about the budget. You said one must approach public budgets from a philosophical lens to do no harm or harm reduction. So how do you, can you give an example of that? What you do with the budget?
Yeah, that's the philosophy of the least harm, because there's always going to be trade-offs. That we're in a fiscally constrained budget situation because of the Sizemore tax measures. That's just the reality. Even if we were to get the QAM funded, there would still be unmet needs with the facilities that need to be rebuilt, whether it's a building, an HVAC system. There's just not enough money to go around. And so you have to be able to strategically prioritize your budget, and you need to be able to tell the story why things are more urgent versus important.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jasmine Reese. Really excited that you're applying for the board. This concludes your interview. While we wait for the other two candidates to return, again, I just want, before the other two candidates return, just again, thank you for applying to the board. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to kind of apply and be in a public forum, and I can't imagine how intimidating this is with 8 people sitting in this weird format here. All right, so while we wait for the other candidates to return, I want to again share the process for, sorry, thank you. Thank you. let's just start all over. So the process for voting. So the candidate who has 4 votes, which is a quorum, would be our next board director for Zone 1, 4 votes or more. I will call on each of you in the order of zone number to please state your vote for who you'll fill in Zone 1 vacancy through June 30th, 2025. I should probably wait for the other 2 to return, yeah. Okay, so, okay. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, you may sit wherever you like. Oh, no, I'm happy. Welcome back. Before we start in the voting process, I just want to personally share, I think we're extremely lucky in that I think we have just 3 extremely strong candidates, and I mean, honestly, I don't think we could go wrong with any of you. I think all 3 of you just are incredible people, have obviously care a lot about education, our kids, and public education, and you know, like I said, I honestly don't think we can go wrong, but all of you, yeah, just split it. I'm sure if we could
There's enough work for 3
expand the board
people.
to 9 members, we would. And we would be all the stronger for it. However, there's 10.
Oh, they're all different districts.
6 plus 3. No, it's okay. But yeah, so short of moving a resolution to expand the board to 9 members, we only have 1 seat, and all of you really just bring such unique experiences, and like, I really mean it deep from the heart. I think we would just be better with any of you 3 here. So thank you again for going through this extremely, I'm sure, scary process to put yourself out there and be in front of us today. All right, so let's start the voting. So I will call on each of you in your order of zone number. That was interesting. And please state your vote for who you would like to fill Zone 1 vacancy through June 30th, 2025. So roll call. Let's start with Vice Chair DePass.
Thank you, and thank you to all of the candidates who put yourself out there. I understand at a visceral level how difficult it is, and I appreciate your courage in stepping forward. My vote is for Jackie Worse.
Thank you. Director Sullivan.
I was just hoping somebody'd really mess up. This was just too hard. I can't believe how lucky we are that 3 people of your caliber would want to do this job. Well, maybe you're not so smart after all. But and this is really, really hard for me. It's hard for all of us, I know, to choose. But my vote is for Christy Split.
All right. Director Green.
Again, thank you all so much for coming and for being here. Normally, I would have a much longer speech, and I would plan, but I've been told that this is not my podium. So therefore, I need to keep it short. But no, I appreciate all of you for coming out. This isn't something that any of you seem to take lightly. You understand the depth and the gravity of all the work, and we would be fortunate to have to have any of you. My vote is for Ms. Jasmine Reese.
All right, Director Hollins.
I'm gonna just echo my colleagues here as well. I don't think we go wrong with any one of you guys. Stepping up, having, and I agree with Christy as far as there being people who want to run, right, and not people who is afraid to run to where you don't have options. I love that. I love the fact that you guys are here for our kids. That is just, it makes my heart smile when I see that. And so, since I have to pick someone, yeah, it's harder, a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go with Jasmine.
All right, Director Brim Edwards.
Okay, I want to thank all three of you. As everybody said, we'd be lucky to have any one of you. I don't like speaking in public even after 12 years, so I really applaud you for coming and, no, I don't. So I really applaud you, no, I'm an introvert, for coming tonight and sharing sort of your hopes and dreams for our district, and how you would contribute. I also just want to echo Gary's comments that I do think I always had contested elections, and it made me a better board member. I hated it, but it made me a better board member. So I really appreciate all of you sort of engaging. My vote is for Christy Splitt.
Thank you. I think I said my piece. Honestly, I think, like I said before, I think we would all be great with any one of you. And in my personal belief, I think all three of you were very close for me. I see a lot of positives. Because I have to pick one, and this is going to create some problems, but I am going to vote for WERS.
We do need to.
Yes. Jackie WERS. All right. So, yeah. Now we start a round of rock, paper, scissors.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
No rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. Plan number one. Plan number two. So, we have a 2-2-2 split. And so what that means is that, or tie, sorry, I used someone's last name here. Three-way tie. So for this next round, so to kind of explain how the rounds work, normally how it would work is if we had two that came out on top, those two would move on to the next round, and between those two we would select. But right now we don't have two leading candidates, so we need to do this vote again. Now, to kind of keep everything civil and prevent us from getting into fistfights, what I propose is that we move forward. We'll go down the roll again, where maybe each board member can vouch, say one nice thing about one candidate that they would like to hopefully convince someone else to move on, and hopefully someone may be able to move their vote. Again, what we really need right now, what we're trying to do, is to get two candidates, the top two, with the top two number of votes, and between those candidates, we'll do the final round where we'll vote which one of those. But right now, we're going to do a round where we just quickly talk about the candidate we want, and hopefully that convinces someone else to move their vote, and if they don't, we'll be here all night. Or I'm... You're right. You want a 2-minute break? Okay. After a 2-minute break, as from request. So we'll see you in 2 minutes. Yes, please. I also forgot, JJ, if you're still there, I forgot to call on your vote. So when the break is over, I'll have you go first and call out your vote. Yeah, it's unofficial, but I think that's mandated by law.
So I think they should. Oh.
We're not talking about. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, we're officially back.
So I was saying that was a suggestion made to me on my way to the restroom that one way to move forward was ask the candidates each the same question and see how they answer the question, and then maybe that can sway any members of the board to move on their vote. It was just a suggestion that someone told me on my way to the restroom, so I thought I'd share it.
Is it like dogs or cats?
Well, the example they gave was if you walk outside the door and you met with a constituent, what would you say to them about PPS? The gist, I think, was just ask them a question, have them answer the same question, and then hopefully that might sway some votes one way or the other.
Yeah, and just also share this discussion. My thought was that I think that's a great idea, and I wish we got that idea beforehand. But the issue is also we didn't inform the candidates that was a possibility that might happen, and so it may create trouble to kind of shift this, change the script along the way. So.
But then my response to that would be we didn't suggest to anybody that there was going to be a tie, and in the event of a tie, that I was going to have to come back to the board and barter for votes either. So we're in a space where this is the unknown, and in the space of unknowns, then we as leadership can create order by stating this is what we're going to do, and this, which is what you just did essentially by simply saying that we're going to go around, we're going to barter for votes and see if somebody changes their mind, or we're going to be here all night, which I won't be here all night. But I mean, that's essentially it. So I'm just saying we're in a space where legally, I think, we got a lawyer. She went to school a lot longer than I did. But
Yeah, good.
You have the ability, if you would choose, if the majority of the board agrees to have a question asked and answered, you are in a space where there's no mandate one or the other. The concern is simply agreement of the majority of the board about the next step and the way you want to proceed.
All right, so I'll ask if there's a majority of the board that would like to proceed with that plan. That's fine with me.
Why don't we, maybe a mush between the two, why don't we do your suggestion and see if that changes something, and then use Director Hollins's suggestion if we still have a tie.
I just want to say with a question, I like the idea, but with the question, then we're asking a candidate that doesn't know what success looks like. You know, how are we evaluating on the question, one way or the other? Does that make sense?
No. Say that again.
Same way we evaluated, yeah.
So,
No, that's
we're
on the
asking somebody, you know,
clarification.
what do you prefer, salt or pepper? And they say pepper, and they say, well, you know, we say, well, that wasn't the answer we were looking for. We were actually looking for salt for these reasons. So,
Well, I don't think we ask them like a yes or no question. I think, you know, we ask them something that's more substantial. I guess it's hard for
So-
me.
so how do we
It's hard
evaluate?
for me to try to advocate for someone that I just seen,
yeah.
you know, up here for the few minutes that we did. I guess that's hard for me to really advocate for that on this brief thing, to really advocate. But however we go, let's go.
And may I know I'm a silent partner in this process, but I was wondering that if there was a question, a single question to be asked, thinking of this 6-month process that a candidate will be in, could there be a question that's specific to their work over the next 6 months, as we have some pretty significant hills to climb?
hypothetically speaking, what would a possible question look like?
How do you envision spending the next 6 months as a newly appointed school board member? Hypothetically, of course.
Hypothetically, of course.
Well, I mean, then the next question is, are the candidates okay with answering this one question?
I'm pretty sure they're going to do what we ask them to do.
Well, they said also.
So I'm okay with, so let me just formalize the ask. The question is, how do you envision yourself spending the next 6 months? We'll give each candidate 1 minute to answer that question. And then my next question is, do we still want to proceed with the original idea of that each member says something about the candidate of their choice, and then we go to vote? Or do you want to just go straight to vote again?
I would love to do the question.
And then vote.
Yeah.
And then vote? Question and vote?
Yes.
Okay.
And then barter?
I'd rather do it the other way. I don't see it as bartering so much as, well, no, I guess I look at it as that, I mean, we all saw something different in the candidates, and I always value hearing what others have to say at the board table, and most of the other appointment processes I go through, part of it is, like, people actually say something before their vote, not just who they voted for. So it seems like we kind of skipped that.
Okay, so I think we should do both, and then do hopefully the final round of voting.
So then if that be the case, then what I would recommend then is we do the suggestion, we hear, then we ask the question, and then we vote.
Okay, so you want to go,
Do
advocate
we
first, and
do
then-
say what we heard, because I also would have, but that wasn't the instruction. So I would have explained why I was voting the way I voted, or what it was that that stood out to me that made me say that was it. Because I'm sure that they all said something, because we were furiously writing down. Pens were smoking up here, so we were all writing stuff down as quickly as we possibly could. So I'm sure that within our notes, we might be able to, this is the thing that stood out for me, which I would have done, but that's not what we were instructed to do. So if we were to do it based on that, this is what stood out to me, and then do the question to each one of the candidates, and then do a final vote, then that seems like it could make sense for me.
Okay, I like that.
Okay.
Are you okay with that? So, again, just really quick reiterate, advocate first. If possible, keep
Term
it
barter.
keep it about a minute under. And then we'll have the questions for the candidates to maybe expand upon, and then way we have a full picture of why each board member thinks the way they do and what stood out to them. And then we also get a chance for the candidates to give one last pitch.
And wait, we have another candidate.
Oh, yeah, I moved. Now I live in a different zone. Sorry, Eddie is my school board member, which I'm very proud of. Deborah Kafori, Chief of Staff, may I offer an additional solution? Because what I foresee happening is that there might be 2 additional votes, because at the next vote, unless someone gets 4, which is the majority that you need, it's not just a simple majority here, you need 4. So why don't you choose 1? Start with 1, see how many votes you get, and then move to the second the question if needed. Because otherwise, you're just going to be back here trying to figure out yet another question.
Okay.
I don't think you can do
We're
it.
going to beat the city council, though. We're going to beat the city council.
Yeah.
Because we're competitive. Like, it will not be 10. Don't worry.
It'll be 11. I just wonder if, well, we should just go ahead and try it and see if it works. I'm doubtful, though. I
All
mean,
right, let's go. Let's go.
the success of this is dependent on someone or some 2 people moving their vote. So if we're flexible, that would work. For any system, yes. So, okay.
But before we start, I promised Student Representative Consavi that he would get to voice his unofficial vote.
Oh, yeah, we didn't hear him.
So if you would like to start, and then if you also want to take your minute to advocate, you're also welcome to do that right away.
All right, I just want to thank all the candidates for their willingness to serve, their dedication to our students here at Portland Public Schools. I'm supporting Jackie because I really admired how she shared her importance of visibility in school communities and really strengthening the relationships with our students.
Who did he say?
Can you repeat that one more time? That was great.
Who's
Yeah,
Jackie?
The whole thing?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to thank all of our candidates for their willingness to serve and their dedication to students. I'm supporting Jackie because I really valued how she shared her importance in community and visibility, her visibility in school communities and really strengthening the relationships with students.
Everyone got that second one?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Student Representative Consavi. All right. Again, I will call your name. We'll do the same order again by zone. And when your name is called, 1 minute or less, advocate for one person. And after this is done, we'll move to votes again. Thank you. Let's start with Vice Chair DePass.
Okay, thank you. I kind of ran your responses, the candidate responses, through my own set of values, which are top importance of understanding the importance of governance, knowing the difference between management and governments, supporting the direction of the district, and also a clear understanding of the relationship between the board and the superintendent. Something really stood out from Ms. Wurz's application. It says the board's role is strategic and high level, ensuring schools operate effectively through strong governance and oversight. I also appreciated the systems approach. Things that come to us are all systems issues, There's not a black and white necessarily or a clear answer, but you understand that putting pressure in one area will absolutely cause a ripple in another area, and that systems thinking is really important. And finally, you have experience in a large, messy organization that's in the newspaper a lot. And I think that would bode well in terms of experience.
Thank you. Director Sullivan.
Oh, boy. I was particularly impressed with the vision and the support just for public schools as the pillar of the community. And I'm sure the other candidates felt the same thing, but you stated that very clearly. I was really impressed with how you've already sounded like you've got a system going for the election coming up in May, which is showing real, a lot of effort early, and I know that's going to be hard. I liked the way you talked about the relationship between the board and the superintendent. Not that others didn't too, but it came through the two-way street, the partnership vibe, the sounding board really made sense to me. The way that in your school you've been able to make sure you have an art teacher and an assistant principal, really standing up for your own school. And about the needs of students, always listen first. And just your ability to talk with students, being on the Constitution team, and maybe because I was a teacher too. I mean, you're all so great that it's hard because you all did that too. but that just stood out to me with Christy. And you mentioned the needle's not moving enough with all the plans in place, and that's exactly how the board feels. So I thought fit right in, being frustrated. So.
Thank you. Director Green.
Chair Wong, I don't believe Director Sullivan actually said who she was voting for. I think it'll
I'm
be
sorry.
important.
So I'm voting for Christie Split.
So we vote again after we.
It's in hopes that once they hear the advocation that someone will say, you know what, you're right, let me move. And that might be why Ms. Kafori said she don't see it. So because we're all going to be advocating for what we voted for is what we're essentially doing. And so, and explaining why we voted. So with that being said, let me get to explaining. The thing that stood out for me was the grassroots that fight that I'm not going to let up. When I'm hearing Jasmine speak, I'm hearing that I'm not going to let up until it's done. It's the bulldog mentality that once I get a hold of this and once I got it, I'm not just going to let go of this because you don't like it. The fact that she looked and she looked into everything that OED was offering. She read all the reports. She went back over it over and over again. Then, as she said, took herself and her family down to Salem so that she could advocate for the QEM, understanding that what we were accepting at the time was not nearly what we needed, but wanting to be the voice of opposition, even though we were saying that, this is what we were going to go for. That stood out. The other part that stood out was listening to understand, or seeking to understand versus seeking to be understood. She said that on multiple different times, and which is hard, which is always hard because as people, we want to be able to respond. We want to be able to, so when we're listening to what somebody's saying, then we're not actively listening because we're listening to respond. And it takes a trained understanding, a trained heart, trained mind to listen, to simply understand before responding, not always trying to respond. The being able to pivot and say that we got it wrong is something that we as a district highly need. We need the ability to say, screw the pooch on that one. We're done. We're abort mission. So to be able to actively say that out loud, that stood out to me. And the ability to get boots on the ground, belly to belly at the table. I hear a lot of phrases all the time. That was one that I had not heard, so I literally had to write it down because it makes so much sense to me that, you know, I may not be able to go to everyone and be in every place, but there's something about being belly to belly at a table where you're actually talking about stuff, because things happen over food. Like when you're breaking bread with people, stuff happens, life happens. I tell people all the time, if you ain't ate with me, you don't know me. Because all you saw is the persona that I put on. All you saw is where I was at. All you saw is this. You don't know me until you broke bread with me. And when you done broke bread with me, now we know each other. And it's at those conversations that life really begins to happen. And to be able to do that with our families and our communities about things that are important to them. You're sitting belly to belly at a table and you're talking about special education and the needs that we have within our district and how are we going to move the needle on that. You're sitting belly to belly at the table and you're talking about literacy. I can see that stuff happening. And when she was saying it, I don't know, that lit a spark for me. Every one of them are just perfect. I do wish that we could have them all, because every one of them would bring a different piece to the table. I mean, I could sit here right now and advocate for all of them, because I got enough notes on my paper from all of them, from Christy to Jackie. We're not going to go wrong. We're not going to go wrong. I want to, but I can't, because I'm supposed to talk about, I'm not supposed to sway somebody. I'm trying to sway them. And now I'm finna advocate for Christy, because it's like, the stuff we need somebody to go down to Salem, and we need somebody that already knows lobbyists. And so we're not going to miss. I do believe that in this season, in this stretch, what we need right now, I believe that Jasmine can do it. And it's the knocking on the door, it's the bond stuff. But then at the same time, she's gonna have to be friends with Christy and Jackie. Because, okay. See, this is why you don't give a preacher a microphone.
I petitioned to have a timer set on your microphone that automatically turns off.
Thank you. I'm gonna need that. I second that motion.
All right, now we gotta find the budget for it. All right, Director Hollins.
Oh gosh, I don't like this at all, and that's just because we have three women who absolutely can do the job, and this whole advocating for one person or the other, you know, just not my jive. But here I go. I'm voting with Jasmine Reese. You know, one thing that not only in the presentation she gave here, but also looking in the thing that they wrote as well, you know, you're seeing that she leads with equity, right? I love the governance piece when she talk about push and pull, right? We want to have a relationship with the superintendent where we can go back and forth on issues to really understand how the needs of our children is going to be met. And I think that's a valuable piece. It's, you know, we're not here like the rubber stamp superintendent. We're not here just to always be adversaries of the superintendent either. And so being willing to have that push and pull with the superintendent in the advancement of our students, I absolutely love that. When we talk about some of the things that she talked about in her questions that she wrote out, she talked about not being a top-down organization, you know, and that's important, because as I don't know if it was Christy or if it was Jackie, but one of them said our students is our priority. And so they both said it. So all three of them, right? And so when we talk about that, we talk about not being top down. So she's coming from a level of ground up. Our kids, then everybody else, right? Our kids, then our teachers, right? And so forth and so forth. I absolutely love that. When she talked about the work that she's done at her kids' schools, right? That showed a lot of commitment. Her experience on what she's done in the community, going by, you know, her question number 8, she has a breadth of experiences that she can pull from when making decisions. You know, and that's something that I looked at. It's like, okay, she has this over here, she has that over here, she has this over here. So I'm looking at her being able to use all those experiences to make the great decisions for our kids. When she talked about using technology and reaching the community, that is awesome. It takes foresight to know what community needs what in order to communicate with them, right? I know here at PPS sometimes we just look at a certain thing, but being able to identify, okay, this community don't email too much. This community needs for people to go look at. When we talk about community engagement, that is so important because we fail at community engagement. We do a community engagement event, 14 people show up and 2 people are the loudest, and it seems like that's the way we want to go. But actually knowing, hey, you know what, we need to go knock on some doors. We need to go over here and pull this person out, especially communities of color. We know they working all day. We know that they're not home till after 6 o'clock. Having that foresight, I think, is going to lead to helping helping make sure that we are doing the practices that we need to do to serve our kids. All right, I'm done. Ty? Okay.
Director Pinto.
So I'm often asked about like what makes a strong school board, and for me, it's I would say also like you get who the voters send, and I think the voters are usually wise that they find like a complementary set of skills. And when I look at the work ahead, and I think it's important that we look at just the next 6 months because that is the term that we're appointing for. I think that Christy would be a huge asset to this board right now. And I'm going to say it's not based necessarily, I think Christy did a great job tonight and her answers were good, but I also am going to speak from what I know from experience because I've been an active parent in this district for 25 years, or either a parent or a school board member. And Christy's somebody who I have run across on many occasions. And I will say we haven't always agreed, and you know I feel pretty passionate about when I feel for something. So so you know when I don't agree with somebody, you know it's. But I will say that like that has never been an issue when we haven't agreed because what I find is Christy is like super student focused and a strong set of values. I think one of the things we need to continue to do after last year is build our relationships with our teachers in the building, and I think that's something that Christy can, because of her background, can help us with. I also think in the next 6 months we have a huge lift. We're asking for QEM, we're demanding QEM, and we also have to pass a bond. And, you know, the passing the bond, now that it's been referred, is the board's work. And Christy has a lot of experience running and winning campaigns. And I think that would be an asset. She also knows her ways around Salem. She knows legislators. And it's going to be a sprint. And it's going to be, like I say, a huge lift to do both of those things. But I'm going to say most importantly, what I've appreciated about just my experience with Christy is while she has shown up for Hayhurst, which is one of the most diverse schools in that zone, she has consistently advocated for kids in Southeast and kids in Northeast and kids in North Portland. So never approach of like, hey, I'm a Hayhurst parent and I'm advocating just for Hayhurst parents. It's usually with a whole bunch of other parents, especially parents from other schools who may not have the same political muscle or voice, and showing up to advocate together as a district, which I've really appreciated since I represent a district in which we don't always have the most politically connected parents with the most political muscle. So I've appreciated a little help from Southwest, and that it hasn't just been, this is about my school and my kids, because it's super easy to do as a parent, because you get focused on your kids. So I really have appreciated that about Christy as well.
Thank you. To make up for all you ramblers, I'm going to keep mine short.
I'm just following Herman.
So,
You were great, Julie.
And Herbert is hard to follow, so you did a great job.
Hey, you're taking my time. What really stood out to me about, again, I can't say this enough. We have 3 amazing candidates, and I would be happy to support any one of you. What stood out to me about Jackie Wers, in her application, when the question about how do you think about trade-offs, and the really short little snippet in the middle of her long answer was by weighing short-term needs against long-term goals. And I feel like just right there, you just nailed the hardest part, the hardest work we do as a board. We just encapsulated in that short little sentence. What also impressed me is just the approach towards analyzing the system. I always think about where are the holes that we have in our board, and where if we fill it would really help us move forward, or even become more creative, or reach our goals sooner than later. And someone who is, when she talks about looking, system-wide and approaching the system, when anybody who has to approach the system is someone who's already going to have to be open-minded, has to be able to take in new information and be able to shift where they stood before, whether the opinions or beliefs they had before, and be able to shift that in order to meet the new information, the new data that comes in. Jackie does that for a living, and I think that's something that would be an immense value to any organization that Jackie works in. And then what I'm really would be excited to see is how, when talking about the experience that Jackie Wers has in talking about strategic planning and turning that into actionable insights. And I think that's another area where we as a board could use some help, right? How to look at the system as a whole, using all this complex data and turning it into something that we can actually do, right? And so that is what stood out for me with Jackie Wers. With that said, we will now be moving on to round two of 28. Just kidding. Rounds of voting. And so, let me sorry, I'm just thinking this through. Again, I'll roll call really quick by zone because I accidentally left off Student Representative Consavi in the first round. I will start with Student Representative Consavi for the second round. So, Student Representative Consavi, please indicate your vote.
I'm voting for Jackie.
Thank you. Director DePass. Vice Chair DePass.
Thank you. Wers.
Director Sullivan.
Christie Split.
Director Green.
Jasmine Reese.
Director Hollins.
Reese.
Director Brim Edwards. Part of my responsibility as a chair is to move us forward. So I'm going to move us forward. I'm going to change my vote to Chrissy Split. Thank you so much. Again, this is very difficult. So we still do not have a candidate with 4 votes. So now what we will do is have a runoff between the 2 candidates that garnered the most votes in the second round. It's between, we have Chrissy Split, which has 3 votes, and Jasmine Reese, who has 2 votes. So these are the 2 candidates that have the most votes, and I'll give you a couple moments to consider your votes, and then we'll do this whole thing, hopefully the final round. How about a minute? Do you need a minute? 30 seconds. No, now it's going to be between
Now it's the question.
Chrissy Split or Jasmine Reese.
Did we want to do the question piece, or we had talked about that, and I thought heard agreement on that?
I thought, my assumption was that was because if it was
Or that
in a
was
stalemate.
instead
But now
of-
that we have moved on to round two,
Okay.
or sorry, round three, now that we
It's
have
on-
now narrowed it and gone to the second stage of voting, I didn't think it was necessary.
I think it's necessary.
No, we just vote. Yeah, because the way this voting system works is by, when we have a runoff, right? This takes into account when people have a first or second preference, right? And so that second preference, if, for example, your first preference didn't make it, you could vote for your second preference, and that may create a majority, and once that creates a majority, we're done. And if we come with I think if we happen upon another stalemate, a tie, then we can do the questioning part that next segment. All right. Anybody not ready? Because I know we've been here long enough. All right, so now I'll call on each of you again by zone number, and please state your vote, who you would like to fill for zone 1. And again, this vote is between Christy Splitt and Jasmine Reese. Let's start with JJ Kunsavi. Sorry, Student Representative Kunsavi.
Christy,
Vice Chair DePass.
Christy Splitt.
Director Sullivan.
Christy Splitt.
Director Green. Director Hollins.
Reese.
Director Brim Edwards.
Christy Splitt.
And I vote for Christy Splitt. Thank you, fellow directors. I would like to announce our new board member, which is Christy Splitt. Yeah, if you would like to. No, so. Yes, please.
I just want to say that I believe in this school board, and the choice that you made today was very hard, but I also believe that Christy Splitt is going to be a fabulous representative. You do have an incredibly difficult 6 months ahead of you, and I look forward to Christy's leadership guiding this board to making strong advocacy for a stronger future for Portland. Thank you for letting me be part of this process, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Sit down here. Is this where I make my few remarks? Sure, let's do it.
So-
I'm here.
I think the process is we were going to take a break and reconvene in about 10 minutes to,
Do we need a break?
but we don't have to. We can move
I'm
forward,
very
right?
comfortable.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to give your happy speech?
Yeah, sure. You want that swearing in, then the speech?
What's that? I don't know what the norm is. Let's do the swearing in and then the speech. All right.
Okay, can I have my daughters up with me? Just my daughters.
You can actually have your whole family and anybody that came here actually be up there with you. And they can stand behind you at the podium showing that support. Yeah, that's a great photo op.
Stand here? Yeah, we'll have you stand right here. Okay. Or Chair Wong. I've never been so nervous in my life, and I'm still nervous. Whew. I guess I care a little bit.
Great. Ready for your oath?
Hand, left.
Any hand
Let's
you
do
would
it.
like.
Okay.
You have a hand, make yours.
I,
Christy Splitt,
Christy Splitt,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States
that I will uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and the state of Oregon and faithfully discharge the duties
and the state of Oregon and faithfully discharge the duties.
of the office of Director of School District Number 1J.
Let's do that again.
The duties of the office of Director of School District
to the duties of the office of the school district,
Number 1J,
number 1J,
Multnomah County, Oregon,
Multnomah County, Oregon,
to the best of my ability.
to the very best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm not shivering anymore, you're right. Thank you so much to Jackie and Jasmine, first of all. I took some notes. Jasmine and I know each other. I met Jackie tonight. You guys are great. Like, could we hang out and, like, fight for public schools together for all time? And if we're running against each other in May, like, let's figure out how to do it in, like, the coolest, most collaborative, interesting way possible. I want to thank the school board members for their careful consideration. I also want to thank my family. My husband drafted the paperwork for me to run for school board about 2 years ago, and I always hold it up as my idea of romance. My kids, who are willing to give up time with me so that I can take on this role, that's a big deal for elementary school-aged kids. And they understand how community service really matters deeply to me and how it really matters deeply to all of us when we take time from our lives to give to others. My mom, who does so much to support us, thank you, Mom. And I want to thank my dad, who inspired me to a path of public service with his own commitment to community. I think he's listening live from Florida. He's up very late. And my step-parents, who are so supportive from afar, and my in-laws, who are so supportive right here. Thank you so much. I want to thank my friends and colleagues who are here. These are friends that I have from, like, real life, friends that I have from working in politics, friends that I have for fighting for school funding, which I didn't even talk about in my interview. How did that happen? That's been a huge part of my life lately. I'm so lucky to have this strong network of caring and loving folks who inspire me every day. And I want to thank the Hayhurst community. Also didn't come up in the interview. The last 5 years, I've spent hours hanging out at Hayhurst Elementary School, filling gaps in staffing after the pandemic, and now I still spend 2 hours with K through 5 lunch every single Friday. So I see the kids in our school once a week, and I know them all, and I know the teachers, and I know the support staff, and they mean so much to me. May every kid feel about school how my kids feel. That's the goal. My job as a board member will be to listen and reflect what I hear from the people who spend the days in our schools: students, teachers, administrators, support staff. And my job will be to ensure that we have the funding and policies in place to make sure every kid is ready to learn so that we can actually build toward those goals we have for academic excellence. And my job will be to deepen connections between our schools and families in the district so that they are all truly in this work of raising and educating kids together. As they say, it takes a village, and I'm glad that you are my village. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful, and we are adjourned.